Hello and greetings to everybody tonight. We're so thankful that you are here because we are here to have a night of information and questions and answers that you might be looking for. Many times parents will want to ask someone else, what do they think about social media, or how can we help our kids deal with the stress and anxiety and all the things that come with this. Many parents want to know, how can we help protect them from all of the stuff that's out there? Or what should we do about cyberbullying? There's a whole bunch of different topics and a whole bunch of different things. And we'll go into some of those tonight. But for time's sake, we won't be able to cover everything. But hopefully tonight you'll walk away with a little bit of an understanding of what it's about and where to start, and some tips and tricks to help you with your tweens and teens. So we'll go ahead and get started with a brief presentation, and then followed by that will be a panel of experts in the community who work in different areas to help you have a better understanding and field some of those questions. So I'd like for you to share this out to your friends, family, coworkers, anybody who has a tween teen, which would be everybody. Because somebody is an uncle, an aunt, a grandma, we all, there's a saying that it takes a village, and it's true. So get this out, share this out. And if you're watching it on the replay, hit hashtag replay. If you're watching it live, we would like for you to put your questions in the chat stream. And at the end of the presentation, when we go into the panel, we'll do our best to answer those. And if we don't get the answer, we'll find the answer and get back to you on it. I would like to mention that if you have small children in the room, you may want to, put some headphones on them, put them on social media for this short period of time. There is some topics that we will cover that are PG-13. We will be talking about the safety issues, which along with that comes some talk in the regards to the sex word. So I would like for you guys to kick back, grab your favorite beverage. If you're cooking dinner, just set this up on the counter and listen to what we have to say. And we're welcoming everybody that's logging on. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And let's go ahead and get started. So my name is Maggie Kavanaugh, and I'm going to do a presentation here for you. And we're just going to kind of have it where we can, give me just a moment here, get it set up, where we can help you with some of these topics. So here we go. Get at the beginning of the presentation here. There we go. So what are we doing tonight? We're helping the tweens, teens in the 21st century. So the Prevention Coalition for Success has given me the honor to do this presentation tonight. And we want to be able to help you with your teens. So let's talk about it. What is going on with our teens today? We hear about chiropractors talking about so many kids having neck problems because they're constantly looking down. We hear about people saying, well, our kids just can't stay focused because of constant stimuli. So we're going to talk about some of the issues tonight. And here's the things that we'll cover: the pros and cons of social media, online safety, signs of addictions. And that also means, digital addiction. It's a real thing. Tips for identifying and monitoring your child's social media, tools and resources to help you communicate with your tweens and teens about these topics. There are positive and negatives of social media. And according to the American Academy of Child Adolescent Psychiatry, in 2018, they did a study and they found that there are some benefits. And we all see those benefits. For those of us that are adults, we're on social media. Most of us are. I'm heavily on social media, and I have to set boundaries in my own life. But the benefits is being able to stay connected with friends and family. You got family that's out of state. You got friends that you don't have time to meet with due to scheduling. And of course, obviously, in 2020 with COVID, this is our one way to stay connected. So there is that benefit, meeting friends, having shared interests, and having communities. And also for people to be able to express themselves with maybe their music or their artwork and other various talents, or information, podcasts and videos and stuff. So it's a great thing and tool that can be used, but there's a lot of negatives that come along with that. So let's look at those. One of those things is the exposure level. Now, I worked 15 years in the insurance industry, and one way that you avoid getting into incidents, if you will, is to limit your exposures. So that's what we hope to do tonight, is to help you limit the exposures that your children have to harmful and inappropriate content. violence. We're talking sex, drugs, violence, and things like that. That is why we're asking, and letting you know this is PG-13, even though we're talking about 9-year-olds know most of this, but we're still giving you that disclaimer early on for sensitive content. Exposure to dangerous people. We know that there are a lot of predators, a lot of trafficking that takes place. Online predators are very real and they are very active and they are after the kids. Cyberbullying. Now listen, we've seen an increase in tween suicide rate, increase in depression rate based on cyberbullying. And the majority of the time, kids don't talk about these things. Oversharing personal information. Now, listen, we might think things are just innocent, like we want to check in at this place with our kids' sports or whatever. People can find us, and we need to be sensitive to that. Exposure to excessive ads. Now, this is a big deal. We are being literally used as experiments. I don't know how many of you have seen the documentary on Netflix. If you have not, called Social Dilemma, you should go watch it. It's very eye-opening. Also, this interferes with sleep, homework, and family activities. Now, some stats according to Bark. Now, Bark is one of the leading internet monitoring software services that you can get, and it helps you to keep the reins on what your child is exposed to. But in August of this year, okay, this is 2020, they saw 123% increase in emergency calls made to parents and schools compared to July. Now, from July to August. Think about that. 123%. That's crazy. These were all about violent and suicidal type of content that kids are talking about. In March to May, there was an increase. Now, we all know that March is whenever shutdown happened. So during that first couple months of shutdown, we see a 23% rise in online predators and 16% increase in hate speech and 63, and I've got a typo there, please excuse that, on severe hate speech. And then sexting went up 11%. Now, these are stats from Bark's analysis of more than 600 million messages analyzed over the period since March of 2020. I don't know about y'all, but that's some heavy duty stuff. Here we've got some types of cyberbullying that is done. Exclusion. Kids coming on there, creating groups, and then bullying someone and kicking them out. I actually seen this in action today. A group was created and someone said, "Why did you put them in there?" And this person said, "You need to get out of this group." I mean, that just makes a child feel really excluded, and it really hurts their feelings, and it goes even deeper than that as far as an introductory to cyberbullying. Gossip, talking about people, saying horrible things, frapping and impersonating. Now, this is very common. Kids will hack each other's accounts all the time. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, but many kids have given out their passwords to their friends innocently enough, not understanding the ramifications. And kids are out there saying things, pretending to be someone else. And then, you see where that can lead. Harassment, that has always been an issue. Cyber stalking, your personal information and tricking. And setting up fake profiles. Even as adults, we see fake profiles all the time on social media, people trying to use someone else's information to get to us and, scam us or whatever. Now, so cyberbullying here, we can see that 1 in every 5 girls are cyberbullied and 1 in every 10 boys are cyberbullied. And 92% of teens are online daily. Think about that percentage. That's a lot of teens and a lot going on. And these are the ones that are reported. 16% of the students in the U.S. have reported that they're being cyberbullied. 16% doesn't sound like a lot. And that's only because this is what's reported. So what are some tips that you can do as a parent? If your child is experiencing this, the first thing that we want to do is we go into mama bear or papa bear mode. And so we don't think, we act. We're just like, what? I can't believe you're doing this, saying this about my kid. How dare you? And so we need to just take a deep breath and avoid any thoughtless action that might cause problems, because we have to look through the perspective of the child and be understanding. We can sometimes make things worse for our children by embarrassment or harassment and so forth. So we really need to calm ourselves before we start to tackle this. But of course, our first response is always to be mama bear. So So, discussing these steps that you're going to take also with your child, because your child is not only going through cyberbullying, but then all of a sudden they're concerned about what's mom going to do? What's dad going to do? And that creates increased stress for them as well. So you gather the evidence and then block the abuser. Now, I'm telling you, gather the evidence. It has to come first, because once you block them, you will not have access to this. Take screenshots, go back through, gather all the messages, everything you can, as if you were presenting a case. Then you need to limit the access. This is what we're talking about again, about limiting the exposures that your child is to be exposed to it, whether it's, bullying or whether it's inappropriate content, all of those things. But, you've got to be careful that you don't isolate them and say, okay, we're putting you in a bubble. You're not going to have any social life whatsoever, because that can lead to depression. Make sure your child is not being bullied physically as well, because if they're getting messages online, there's a possibility that on campus at school, they are being bullied as well. So you need to investigate that and be understanding when, explaining to your child that you're concerned about them, and then be prepared to take any legal actions if needed. Now, that's not the case always, but sometimes there are severity situations where legal action must be taken. This is a serious thing. Kids end up really devastated by this. And when you see the statistics and you look at the suicide rates, being bullied, both cyberbullying and on campus or at their location of where they, do their sports or their activities and so forth, a lot of statistics show that the child had been bullied prior to that event and they feel hopeless. So with that being said, we got to educate our child about why people bully. And, some of you may not agree with this, but I'm going to say it because this is just who I am. For those of you that know me, we got to pray for them. We've got to pray for these kids. There's a reason they are bullying. Maybe they've learned it from an older sibling. Maybe they're being bullied by their parent. Maybe, there's a lot of reasons why they're acting out. And we need to be educating our children about this, and then why hurting people hurt people, and then taking it a step further and praying for them. Seeking counsel when needed. Now, this is super important. I personally believe that counseling should be a requirement of life. If you got a pulse, and you've been on the earth, probably 6 to 7 years, maybe younger, you probably need to speak with a counselor. There is no shame in that. So many times people are like, well, I don't want to go to a counselor. I don't want to take my kid to a counselor. The fact of the matter is it gives them a safe, open area where they can discuss what's going on. And there are some things that can come out and help them process what they're feeling. In addition to that, you want to monitor all social media. And I mean, if your child, and that's if you let them go on social media. Now, most social media platforms will say that you have to be 13 to get on it, but I see kids as young as 9 and 10 on there all day long. And so if you choose to let your child on social media, you need to be monitoring it, because you don't know what they're seeing unless you are right there watching it. So what are they talking about? They're talking about all kinds of stuff. So this is just a brief synopsis. If you look at, some of them, there's the age groups here, and this only goes 13 to 17. But again, we know kids younger than that are on here. They're talking about their political beliefs, their religious beliefs, their personal problems, dating life. Look at this on 15 to 17-year-old girls. Yikes. Woo. Okay. Emotions are big as well. Family life and accomplishments. So these are just some of the things that the kids are talking about. Now, everywhere you go, everybody has a smartphone, and we have seen an increase in the years of smartphone usage, if you will. And now this doesn't include iPads, tablets, all of the different things that are out there. Kids are basically using gaming systems to be able to communicate as well. But this is specifically about smartphone ownership. So we see 91% by the time that they're 18. And if you look there, more and more kids at the age of 11 and 12 are having them. So look, almost 70% of kids at 12 years old. These are very powerful devices, and they can be very dangerous if not monitored and used properly. So the world of social media, let's talk about that. Is it changing the brain? Does there increase? And I'm just going to stop sharing for one moment here and just hold on there just a second. because I think that I just had somebody join in, and they can't come in unless I let them in. So hold on here. Sorry about that. Let me go back up here. We will resume here. Okay, hold on. Okay. Well, sorry about that. Okay. So basically what you need to know is that you've got to monitor screen time, because there's so many things going on out there to pull your kids away from their family unit. Now, let's face it, when kids start to have hormonal changes and they start to, go through basically their tween years and into their teen years, there's so much going on. And we talk all the time about the brain and how it affects the brain. And, their brains they're getting rid of all the old data and for new data to come in. And we know that female brains are fully developed until 25 or 23, and males like 25. So they're still trying to find their place, their identity, and who they are. So according to the FBI, 50% of victims and groups online are between the ages of 12 and 15. So what is a predator's MO? Now, we've got Candy Carter on here with us tonight, and she's part of the panel, and she can field a lot of these questions. And so, but what are the predators? What do they do just to bring our kids in? We know that they try to seek out kids that they can dominate, kids with low self-esteem and so forth. They will literally hang out in malls, and they will watch girls, and they can tell just by their posture whether they have self-confidence. And if they don't, they'll hone in on them, and they will literally try to make statements to them like, oh, you're so beautiful, and they try to get them to connect with them somehow. So how they do it on social media is very similar. They act like they're the same age or maybe even a little bit older, and they all have fake images, which are very easily to get. Anything we see on social media, it's not always real. Let's face it. This is a fantasy world. And whenever things are out there, people only put out their best stuff anyway. So they can take a young boy's profile, snatch his pictures, him playing soccer, him playing guitar, whatever, create a fake profile and pretend to be that kid and become a boyfriend online or a girlfriend. It is not, just one sex that is targeted. So they build trust by having, similar interests, offering to buy them gifts. Many times they'll pretend to be related to someone in the modeling, or they'll pretend like they're in the industry of entertainment, making comments like, oh, you're so beautiful, you should be a model, or you're a handsome guy, you should be in movies. Now, to an impressionable tween, teen, and even adults fall for this stuff. They will get sucked in, and they will start to groom them. They play on their emotions, they get to their self-image, and they attempt to keep the relationship secret. And they do that, and once they build that confidence, then they turn it to sex. They start talking to them about how mature they are, and have they tried this? And we won't go into graphic details, but it gets pretty scary. Many times they will try to get them to send photos, and once they get photos, they've got something to use as leverage. Now, I just want to stop here for a moment and talk about this is going on in our schools. We've got younger kids that have been groomed into trafficking, and they have learned how to get other kids involved and so forth. So this isn't just the creepy guy that's hanging out at the strip club. This is real life people that you would not expect. And it's a very, very dark world. And at another time, if you have an opportunity, Candy has a lot more information than I do on this, and it is very scary, very true. Trafficking is real, and it can happen anywhere, anytime. Now, it's happening online. I put every minute, but I know it's happening every second. And we've got a huge issue out there because trafficking, we think about trafficking drugs. Well, drugs, they sell it one time, it's gone. Trafficking people, they do it over and over again. So is there signs that we can watch for that our children might be being groomed to be lured into this, or even be sexually, used online? And it's the increased time on a device. They will be on their device all the time. Why? Because that's feeding their ego. When someone's telling them you're beautiful, you're handsome, you should do this, you should do that. I miss you. I want to talk to you. And they get really into their emotional state. And they basically, it's kind of like Stockholm syndrome. If y'all remember that, where they're the person that has really got them trapped, that becomes like their little savior, so to speak. I mean, they want to please them and they'll do anything. Sometimes they won't use the pictures to blackmail them. Sometimes they'll just go ahead and try to meet them before they get the pictures, and then the kids are never seen again. So if you are walking into a room and your child is switching screens or closing tabs, that's a big red flag. Not necessarily that your child is being groomed, but there's something they're wanting to hide. And again, they're wanting to become their own. They want their own identity. They want to have privacy, but they're not emotionally equipped for that. Being secretive, spending an increased time alone, deleting their history. Listen, I am going to start in January doing a lot of live streams on tips for parents of what they can look for on their kid's phone, because you would be amazed at how smart these kids are and what they can do and how quickly they can do it. So, creating fake screen covers and hidden apps, those are called vaults. You can literally keep all your stuff behind a vault, and you think your kid, you're checking your kid's phone thinking you're doing the right thing. You're looking at their calculator, and behind that calculator is all of their porn. So, I mean, this is serious stuff that we need to take heed to. And everybody's always like, well, not my kid. Not my kid. My kid wouldn't do that. Listen, kids are kids, and they're making choices, and they are not fully functioning with the full brain. And I don't say that to insult our kids, but it is true. They are impressionable. They are developing and changing, and it's our role as adults to make sure that we protect them. So how do you protect your kids from these predators? Education is the key in a lot of things. So explaining how they work, making sure that they recognize these signs, and explain that predators aren't always strangers. That's a biggie right there. That is a biggie. So many times I hear people say, oh, well, it's only Uncle Joe or so-and-so's brother or so forth. I'm going to tell you right here and now that a lot of these things take place with people they already know. And so you got to talk about this, about, personal boundaries with people that they know and what is unacceptable. And so this can be done at early ages. There is content available for even, your little toddlers, how to teach them what is safe and what is not, and so forth. So I will, at the end of all the broadcasts tonight, I will go through in the chat stream and I will list tons of resources for you to educate your children about predators and safeties. I will also put some software portions in there. You do your own research and pick the one that works best for you and your family. There's several of them out there, and we will do everything we can to get tips and tools into your hands, resources, so that you don't have to be unaware of what's going on. It's only porn. Okay. Now, I know some of you right now are probably going, well, it's not a big deal. They're just going through the change and they're curious. Listen, there's 4.5 million porn sites out there, and 70.7 teens and 84% of tweens. Okay. Let's talk about tweens. That's ages 9 to 12. 84%, folks, have seen nude or sexual content. I don't know about you, but that's not just porn. That's like literally, it used to be that you had to know someone who knew someone who knew someone who had a dad who had a VHS in the garage. It is imagery being flashed at them so quickly on a daily basis, and it's become a norm. So 93% of boys and 62% of girls are exposed to porn before the age of 18. I have personally dealt with this a lot. So you can say that it's not harmful. I can tell you it is. I have had clients who have been fired from their jobs because they couldn't stay off of porn at work, and it, did use porn at work. I've had kids as young as 9 years old being addicted to porn, couldn't define what addiction was, but yet they would do anything to get their pad. This is a serious issue, and it's changing the way that they view intimacy. So 83% of boys have seen group sex. To think about that should not be. 67% of children admit to clearing their history to hide internet activity. Now, that might not necessarily be just porn, but it's inappropriate activity that they don't want mom or dad to see. The average age of a child seeing porn is age 11. So sexting, my kid? How many of y'all have heard about this? I hope you all have heard about it, but usually the first thing that I hear, and listen, we are in this together. We are all parents, grandparents, educators, youth leaders, and so forth. All kids can get caught up in this. So we need to not be so my kid wouldn't do that. 73% of teens have smart devices. So teens don't admit to this. Okay. There's a level of shame that comes with this. But according to, JAMA, the Journal Association of Medical Association of Pediatrics, did a study of 10,300 teens, and 15% of them admitted to sending and 27 admitted to receiving messages. So keyword there is admitting. And we know that so much shame comes along with this. So how do we prevent that? Again, communication, education, these are important, and it's vital by, what we're going to allow on screen time. So we need to talk about their sexuality in a healthy way. There's lots of resources, again, out there. And like I said earlier, I'll post them in the chat stream. But if they are sexting, make sure they understand that this is illegal. This can get them in a lot of trouble. They can be sexting and literally be charged as a sex offender under the age of 18. This is serious business. And so there's moral issues, there's legal issues, and deep psychological issues, because when we talk about porn, it releases dopamine and has the potential for addiction. And we all know that people do get addicted to this, and it ruins relationships. So talk about consequences of this happening, that it being illegal, the possibility of, teen pregnancy, and so on. If your child is already addicted to porn, you need to stay calm. Stay calm, because it's going to be difficult for both you and them to talk about this. But, they're feeling some shame, and you have to remain calm, because if you respond out of anger, it's going to be hard for them to talk to you about the tough stuff in the future. This is just only one thing that they might be going through. Get counseling, accountability software. Listen, accountability software, there is many of them out there. I personally, recommend Covenant Eyes. It's a great resource to have on your kid's phone. You have accountability people. If they go anywhere they shouldn't go, it emails those accountability people. Matter of fact, I got married in 2014, and I required my husband to have this for the first 2 years of marriage. Why? It's not that I didn't trust him. I don't trust the imagery and what's being thrown at people all day long. So it's important to be accountable and have that set up for your kids to where they don't have to deal with that on the front end. So if you haven't had the sex talk, please do. Kids are curious, and you do not want them learning about it on the internet, because it's a very distorted worldview of what it is. Explain to them that porn gives them an unrealistic way, and it leads to unhealthy images of sexuality. And the content is to be within a marriage to conceive children. And, the porn stuff is so sad what kids are exposed to. So let's talk a little bit about compulsive use and how that can head to addiction. Now, I know that many of you are saying, well, it's my kid doesn't have addictive tendencies. Well, do you look at this image and what do you think? Do you ever feel like that when you're trying to catch up with your posts, your likes, your emails, your text messages, your messenger, your Insta, your Facebook, all of that? Then you've got a household of people that's all doing the same. It's like a whirlwind. So addiction. Now, we don't have a lot of time to go deep into this, and I've done some talks on this before, but we all know that this can lead to serious consequences. And it can be, we think about addictions, we automatically think chemical, we think alcohol, drugs, things like that. But it is behavior, compulsive behavior on the internet, or gambling, or shopping, or anything you can get addicted to. So screen time literally changes the brain chemistry. It's they're looking at screen time, and young influential girls are looking at likes, and that is determining their self-worth. That's not healthy. And so when someone likes or loves something, they get a hit of dopamine. So just like a heroin addict, they're trying to get that next hit. Digital addiction is a real thing. So what are some of the behaviors of people who are in active addiction? Well, they obsess about it. They've got to have it. They always want it. If you've seen the documentary, I can't remember if it was the one by Bark or the one that's on Netflix, a girl literally picked up like a hammer and busted the jar that her mother put all the smartphones in so they could have quiet family mealtime, so it's pretty, that's pretty obsessive behavior when you're willing to go to those links, always wanting more. Now that can even be a lot of different things, more screen time or just more of anything. These are tendencies that active addiction people have: lying, manipulation, criminal behavior, continued use regardless of the consequences, not taking responsibility, revolving relationships, seeking secrecy, risk taking, all of that stuff comes with this. It's pretty scary. So signs of a tech addiction are very similar to signs of other addictions like we talked about, but this would be trouble making or keeping friends, attention difficulties. Listen, we're getting so much brain stimulation that we can't keep up. Our attention is so all over the place as a result of everything. We've got like this just quick little on to the next thing. Difficulty sleeping and other addictive behaviors that we mentioned before. So what can parents do here? Well, we have, a digital policy at my house. Like, for example, my granddaughter, she comes frequently. She had her friends stay all night the other night. They turn in their phones. We have certain rules when it comes to phones, pads, and all technology. Everything comes to me, and everything gets basically put in its place. I'll have kids all the time say, well, I don't have to turn my phone in at home. I said, baby, you ain't at home. You're here, and this is our rule. We don't allow you waking up at 1 a.m. and scrolling to all kinds of inappropriate behavior. Well, I'll give your phone back to you in the morning. We just have specific rules. So set a digital policy for your household and stick to it, and keep it specific on your social media rules if you allow social media. Unplug your internet for blackout times. Literally unplug your router so that you can have that non-negotiable time with facial interaction with each other. Don't allow devices at the table. Devices are turned into parents, like I said, when not using. For example, if you allow your child to be on their device after chores, social, homework, things like that, you can use it to your benefit. And then a lot of parents will choose to only have a weekend only policy. And this is where all week long, you're not allowed to have it during the week, but on the weekend, you can have it within boundaries. Never allow phones a few hours before bedtime, because just the screen interaction with your brain makes it hard for them to sleep. And, parents should all have their charging stations where kids cannot get up and get to these devices. Be creative with whatever you have to do with your family. Use various softwares like Bark or, SafeWise. I mean, there's a ton of them out there. I'll list some of them in there. Some of them are free. You're not going to get all the bells or whistles, but everyone can have access to some level of limiting the exposure. So set an example yourself. I mean, let's think about how we use social media. And now I know some of y'all probably just logged right off because we don't want to be called out, but we can't expect our kids to be responsible if we have devices in our hand all the time and we're not making a focus and interaction with them. So sorry if I stepped on toes there. So how do we help our teens deal with all of this? I mean, they're dealing with cyberbullying. They're dealing with potential predators. They're dealing with bullying. They've got all of these things going on. We have got to get them moving. We cannot allow them to stay sedentary because their bodies were not designed to sit in front of a gaming system or look down at a phone or be on a computer all day. Contrary to what's going on right now, obviously they have a lot of screen time because of school, which can't be helped right now, but we need to get them moving, in between their classes, have them get up and get exercise, eating healthy and taking their vitamins and staying emotionally strong, teaching coping skills, getting a coach or someone to work with your teen with life management issues, get them into a peer group or youth group, counseling or mental health provider, whatever you got to do. We've got to help them reduce stress. We're seeing too much of it. So I would like to stop sharing my screen for a moment. And I do want to go back and piggyback on something here. Do we have, let me see here, scoot this out of the way. Screen time. I want to talk about screen time because when I went back a while ago, I missed a few slides. Okay, let's talk about a study that was done by UCLA. They literally did brain scans of 32 teens as they reviewed an app that was similar to Instagram. Okay, so it had 140 images, and every time they were liked, the brain would show increased activity in their brain and their reward system. Now, we all know the reward system of the brain is what gets hijacked when someone is abusing drugs. And we talk about, yes, maybe the first time they used by choice or their free will, but once their reward system in their brain is hijacked, it becomes increasingly difficult to get their brains back to where it needs to be. So they believe that this is why teens are literally struggling with this, because it's like a drug. So the mental health concerns of this can be depression, prolonged use of with low self-esteem, like we talked about, the comparison trap, anxiety, hard to keep up with the social cultures of online. There are so many social cultures that are not even discussed or unspoken. Like they didn't reply back, or they didn't like my post, or they didn't read my message, or the demand that you've got to be on all the time and be able to respond to everyone. I have had to set personal boundaries with mine. I have it on do not disturb a lot of times. Sometimes I'll put it to where people can't tell I'm online. I know that sounds terrible, but I have to use wisdom. I literally contribute a lot to social media, but I am not a consumer. So what I do is I give myself 10 minutes twice a day. Early mid-morning, I will say, Siri, set a 10-minute timer, and I will have 10 minutes to consume social media. Later in the day, Siri, give me a 10-minute timer, and I will consume social media, because I want to know what's going on with my grandkids in Florida. I want to see what my family and friends are doing. And so we all want to do that, but we can get so sucked in. And if we're expecting our children to be responsible with social media, we have to set the stage and we have to set the example. There was a comment that was made in one of the documentaries that I watched, and it literally was talking about, do you check your social media accounts before you go to the bathroom or while you go to the bathroom? It's one or the other. And that's pretty eye-opening, because a lot of people, the first thing they do. So I'm challenging you and encouraging you, parents, give yourself a break and, set some boundaries as well, because the sleep deprivation is real. They wake up in the middle of the night and they get online. This is why it's important to have them. Envy is really, there's a lot of things that can be said about that, because they're only seeing the highlighted versions of someone's life, and they begin to compare themselves and they become jealous of them. And that can literally lead to bullying or mean behavior. And communication that can be consumed so that they don't interact with other people around them. I mean, they lose the connectivity due to not seeing social cues and body language. So screen time can be defined a couple different ways. There's active and passive. So active is like social media, responding to messages, liking, commenting, hearts, loves, all of this stuff. But also, there is watching TV and films and things like that. So there's a lot of discussions where we could go really deep into all these different areas, but for sake of time, we don't have it tonight. But I want you to educate yourself on all the platforms. Make sure you know your kids' passwords. I mean, it should be non-negotiable. They don't need privacy. I'm sorry to say that. A lot of people are like, well, I trust my kid and I don't want them to think I don't trust them. It's not a matter of trust. It's a matter of protection. So monitor, talk about it. So now I would like to go ahead and close out of this section of this and talk a little bit with our amazing panel that we have tonight. There they are. And we're going to let Tyler in. Hey, Tyler, thank you for joining in. Okay. Can everybody see us? Okay. So we're going to do an interactive panel. We have some amazing people on here, and we're going to start. We'll start with, let's unmute Sarah here. Sarah, go ahead and unmute yourself. There we go.
I did.
Okay, Sarah, tell them a little bit about yourself and why we're here tonight.
Yes. Hi, everyone, and thanks to everyone who's joining us. I'm Sarah Murphy. I'm the director of the Prevention Coalition for Success. We are a nonprofit organization located in Rutherford County, offices in Murfreesboro, focused on preventing substance abuse in all regards. We host a community coalition, so we would love to have anybody interested join us for those meetings that we host monthly, focused on primary prevention of substance misuse in youth. And then we also have some additional grants working really across the spectrum, mainly on the recovery side as well. So I would like to say thank you so much to Maggie for that really insightful and just really useful presentation.
Thank you, Sarah. I enjoy putting it together, but I will tell you there's so much more. I mean, this is just scratching the surface, and there's a lot of controversy out there about it, but I do believe that we would be amiss if we did not address this and address it sooner than later. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to do that. So most of you all may or may not know me. I am Maggie Kavanaugh, Moving Forward Ministries with my husband, Kevin, and you can check us more out online because I want to talk about these amazing people that I have the pleasure of knowing that is giving of their time tonight to be on the panel. So Garland, can I get you to unmute yourself there? There's my brother Garland. I love this man. He has such a heart for young people and their families. Garland, tell us about what you do.
My name is Garland Henley. I'm with the Rutherford County Juvenile Detention Center. My official title is Transition Life Skills Facilitator. It's a fancy group of words for program coordinator. That's I'm over the educational department and all other services that we provide to try to keep the kids in school and to reduce the recidivism rates, as well as give them some life skills while they're there to make them better citizens and find out who they are.
I love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you for all you do, Garland. And we're happy to have you here tonight on the panel. And now we'll jump down here to my sister, Candy. Candy, will you unmute yourself, please? Tell them a little bit about what you are doing these days.
My name is Candy Carter, and I am an advocate for those who have been victims of human trafficking. I'm serving right now as a consultant to NAHT, which is Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. But I've been on the front lines for a little over 20 years, and I've had the privilege of meeting several of you and getting to work with you and some of those that you reach out to as well. But I'm here to help any way that I can.
Candy, we're so grateful to have you. Getting a little echo there. Sorry about that, y'all. We're so grateful to have you here tonight. Your years of expertise, especially when it comes to the grooming process that you have seen over the years. So as you probably know, that was just a teeny tiny bit of what takes place and so forth. So thank you, Candy, for being here tonight. We appreciate you. Tyler, this is my brother from another mother. Okay, there's Tyler. Tyler, tell us a little bit about what you're up to these days.
Well, I'm doing outreach for Fort Wayne Recovery. We're about 5 hours north in Indiana. So I'm really focusing on this area and trying to advocate for people in recovery and getting them out into treatment, which is what I've been doing. But working with a friend of mine that we're in weddings, I get to see these built and be a part of it. So it's pretty exciting. We do everything from residential inpatient and detox all the way through outpatient. So doing quite a bit.
We appreciate all you do. Tyler has devoted his life to see people get set free and to get help and recovery because it does happen. So thank you, Tyler, for being here tonight. And thank you for all you do. If you can is your internet box in that room where you're at? Because you were freezing up a little bit.
Yeah, it's not. I was actually going to ask you because y'all were freezing. I can try to move downstairs and see if it'll fix it if you'll give me a minute.
Yeah, you go ahead and do what you got to do and we'll get started and you just come back. Are you taking your device with you or?
Yeah, I'm going to mute my camera or mute my voice thing and my camera and I'll head downstairs. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, excellent. Okay, so we had asked parents to submit some questions in advance. Now, we do have some people that work in various areas, but we might all add a little bit to these questions. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat stream so that we can answer those the best we can. There is some of you may be watching it on Moving Forward Ministries page. Some of you may be watching it on, let's see here, the Coalition page, and some of you may be watching this on Periscope. And so I'm going to look at Periscope and see if there's any questions on here. Look at those smiling faces here. Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat stream on Periscope. So how are we looking over there, Sarah? Do you see anything coming in on your end?
I don't yet, but I don't mind getting us started with a question of my own. So I've been wondering, Candy, since you've been in, I guess, working in Middle Tennessee for the last 20 years, what's changed over time? How is the human trafficking issue? What do you see that's different, that exists now that maybe didn't exist 10 or 20 years ago?
Well, most definitely social media has added a whole nother level to human trafficking. And as we all know, human trafficking equals money, and that's really what it's all about. So I think the most important thing that we need to think about is just the vulnerabilities, a lot of times from a socioeconomic background on certain people, whether they're struggling with poverty or, sometimes it can be addiction issues. And the addiction issue has been on the rise. And that has contributed a lot. So it's caused it to grow exponentially because of that. And then, of course, access to, just like Maggie said, to the pornography industry. Pornography is free now. So.
Yeah, that's a very good point you make. When it comes to the pornography issue, really, to be honest, that's what feeds the industry. Because they get to a point where looking at imagery is not enough, and then they have to seek out more. And that's why it is such a big business. So, the appetites of the flesh can really get people into trouble. So, Sarah, that was a great question. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's see here. I'm looking here on a couple different platforms here. And I have a question here. Let's see if I can get back to it. How can we keep track of our kids' social media when they're gone all the time to activities and at school? That's a tough one. A lot of the things that we talk about, they're not always going to be right there with us. Now, Garland, you've got teenagers, right?
I do. I've got one teen now. My oldest has turned 20 on me, so they're growing up on me. I think one of the things that we did as a family is that what you said earlier in the presentation, we did require all of our kids, our two oldest who had access to their phones, we did require everyone to give us their passcode. We did implement a time before bedtime that everyone had to put their devices into a box, and we kept it in our rooms. Those were just some of the things that we did to be able to do that. As we kind of got along, as kids, like you said earlier, kids are pretty creative in hiding some things. We got educated on VBNs and different tools that was out there that kids could tap into. Now, I would say, one of the things that you said earlier about the privacy, I think the one thing that we stress to our kids is that, like you said, there is no privacy in this house. We love you. We want you to grow. We're going to give you the tools to grow. But in this house, trust is earned. It's just not given freely. So, we want them to work toward their earning their trust. And a lot of people may think that that's a little harsh, that's unfair. And I can appreciate that, but really, as parents, we're not in the business of making friends and doing things nicely. Parenting is hard. It's hard work. And sometimes you have to make some tough decisions and be happy with yourself that you're doing it for the right reason, though they hate you for it. I think that's one of the hardest things to deal with. So if you can get over that and understand that parenting is hard and you're going to have to make some tough decisions and it's not going to win you any popularity contest, I think you're heading in the right direction. to make some changes and to protect your household.
Wow. Very well said. Very well said. Yeah. If your child is always happy with you, then you're kind of doing something wrong somewhere. Garland, with real quick before we go on to Tyler on this, I wanted to ask you, the kids that you see that come into the detention center, do they usually go through a little bit of social media or withdraw, or do they talk a lot about their online life?
Most definitely. Their social media and internet usage is talked about as if they were talking about their sneakers and the latest clothes that they wear. It's just built into the conversation of what they say and what they do. I think us that are a little older, we have to work hard to implement social media into our conversations because we've had to work. We didn't grow up with it. But for them, they've grown up with it. They don't know of a world minus social media. So when they come in, they're most definitely communicating and talking about their social media. I mean, they say hello to each other, and in the midst of their greetings to one another, they're giving their Instagram and Snapchat information. So come look at me on Instagram. This is my Instagram log. So, I mean, it most definitely is part of the fabric of their conversation. And there is some withdrawal that they go through, not having access to it. And they're asking you for it. Like, and if you can't give it to me, at least look me up, so when you go home, look me up. So I mean, so it's just ingrained in the fabric of these young kids today.
Yeah, Generation Z is facing some things that we didn't have to face. And I remember when, beepers came on the scene, and then, the big bulky, you remember the big bulky square cell phones? They're like, I really show my age here, but yeah, it's true. And it now is so common. So Tyler, I would like to ask you, when it comes to, there was a question here in regards to addiction with social media, internet, digital. Okay. And so when we say digital and internet, we're talking about gaming and social media platforms and YouTube and all of the, anything that's really pulling on the attention of our children. Right. Do you see the high potential for addiction? Because you have worked in this field for years.
Yeah, I think addiction crosses over into different facets. I think that drug addiction is stigmatized because we think it's, the guy that's sleeping on a park bench that doesn't have a place to go at night. And that's a lot of the issue is, workaholism can be an issue, gluttony. And I mean, I've seen in my own 7-year-old daughter, I had to take her iPod away because she was at 7 years old shaming her sister into texting her while her baby brother was sleeping, my stepdaughter. And I see these behaviors, which I exhibited at an early age. And I know that addiction is genetic because I'm an addict. So I see these sneaky behaviors and things like that. And she's already doing it. And we do know that when you're stimulating your mind, and I'm not a doctor, but, I really like to learn about the way I am, because the more I can understand the way my brain works and how I am, the easier I can fight triggers, anxiety, things of that nature that really lead me to want to use or to go back. So when you're doing that, you're releasing endorphins, you're releasing serotonin and dopamine, and your body automatically wants to trigger. And what we do know, I don't know if y'all watched that Netflix documentary on Instagram and all these other social media platforms, but they literally have people that deal in psychology that are trying to find ways to grab your attention, and they're trying to buy your time. And you're sitting there, engaged in your phone and not even knowing you're addicted. And that's the scary reality. And I joke with my wife about it. I try to kick her off the phone sometimes, and she has to get on to me for my fantasy baseball. So, there's a lot of different stuff that comes into play. And sorry, my daughter tried to run on the screen. She heard me talking about her. But I think that naturally it's just, and back to the parenting thing, like my kid's not a teenager, but there are days that I make decisions and me and my wife look at each other and we're like, are we bad parents? Because we're on top of her. We're making sure and we're explaining to her, this is why we did it. If you're just punishing them and taking their phone away and not explaining what you're trying to teach them and the balance that you're trying to instill, then you're doing them a disservice. So I think it all ties into one piece. And the social media thing, that, that's just like some kid picking up tobacco at 12 years old or pornography and learn to stimulate his brain. And eventually it can transgress into something greater. You just don't know until they get old enough. So I hope that answers the question.
Oh, it does. Very well said. And for those of you that have not watched that documentary, I'm just going to tell you, it really is concerning that we are the product and they are throwing things at us all the time. I seen someone post something the other day that said, this is a new way of doing shopping. You sit around at the dinner table and you talk about the things you need to go buy, and then they send you the ads for it. It's just insane. And so there's so many facets to what's going on. There's another documentary that was put out by Bark, which is one of the VPN, one of the covers that we were talking about, that is a subscription that you can purchase on a monthly basis to monitor your kids' work. And they have a documentary out called Childhood 2.0. And if y'all haven't seen that, that's another one. And again, I'll put the list at the end of the broadcast in there. Oh, there she is. She's beautiful. I'll put a list in the broadcast of some of these resources that you want to check out. Listen, we're not here to tell you, we got all this information and we know what to do. We are going through the same thing you're going through. This is the new breed. This is the new way of doing things. And we need to do like what all these people have expressed. Educate our children and talk to them about these, because someone will. So, Sarah, how's it looking over there? Any questions coming in on the prevention side?
Let me flip back. Sorry. Let's see. So here's one related to Maggie. I think this is something you mentioned earlier during the presentation about how it's about what's appropriate ways, and Garland, you already mentioned some, for parents to intervene when a cyberbullying incident has happened, because we don't want the kids, we don't want it to make the issue worse. So that's what that question is about. If anybody would like to expand on that, some strategies.
Who wants to hit on that one there? Have you, Garland?
Yeah, I would say, my children haven't went through cyberbullying, but I did have I have 4 kids. I have 2 boys and 2 girls. And my oldest girl, who is 18 now, when she was in elementary school, she got bullied real bad. And we really had a hard time trying to get her to readjust and get her some help. And just here recently, my youngest daughter came home, and her brother told me that she's getting bullied at school, and we had a conversation about it. And I would say that anytime that you're having a child that's being bullied, I think it's extremely important to let them know it's not their fault, to kind of remove the fault factor from them. 2, one of the things that we did with our daughter, and this just happened about a week ago, we just sat her down and asked her and explained to her what makes bullies bully. And we used an example of almost like terrorists. When 9/11 took place, we were really shook by everything that was going on in the world. There was this extreme uneasiness that was taking place, and would they attack again? And we kind of used that as an example of bullies, is that bullies bully because there's something that they're dealing with, and they express it in a very unhealthy way. And sometimes they express it on people that they see as different than them. And we kind of gave her that thought. And the great thing that happened out of that conversation, as we just communicated with her and allowed her to talk and share her feelings, is that we challenged her to think of different ways of how we could handle how she could handle the situation. She could go to the principal, she could tell her teacher, she could tell the SRO. There's a lot of different ways that she could address the situation. She can most definitely confront the little girl and tell her stop and don't do it again. And we kind of put it in her hands to give her an opportunity to address it herself with our guidance and with us, with our support. And the cool thing about it is she eventually came to us later on that night and said, I've been thinking about it. I think she wants to be my friend, but she doesn't know how to be my friend. And I think I'm going to have a conversation with her and tell her that I don't appreciate what she does. And if she wants to be my friend, I'm there for her. But we cannot be friends like this. And I was blown away when she said that to us, because, you know, she's 10 years old. And I was thinking, you know, at one point I joked with her and I put my hand up and I said, hit my hand, throw a fist, throw a fist. And she was like, I don't want to do that, So I think our children really have the tools necessary to address some of these issues. It's just on us as parents to help coach them through it and give them some support and maybe give them some direction to go with, and then let them work through that. And then even if they make the wrong decision or if they feel a little uncomfortable, it's okay. I think we live in a world where if you make a mistake, it's bad. Oh, we picked the wrong president. We picked the wrong person. We did the wrong thing. And I think for us, we're really trying to teach our kids there's no really any wrong moves if you haven't learned from it. So even if she decided to go tell the principal and the friendship never happened, it's okay. Maybe she shouldn't have never been your friend, and we have to do what's best. But the route that she went, I thought was a great route. She earned a friend in the long run. They get along now. She's not bullying her anymore. And I think that's the thing that really for me and what I think moving forward is that just encouraging our kids to talk and to communicate with them, and then have a heart of understanding of maybe why they do what they do. I think that may not work for everybody, but I thought it was a great thing for us, and just wanted to share it.
Wow.
That really hit home for me, and some work that we are doing from the coalition, which is trying to prevent and raise awareness about the risk of adverse childhood experiences. And so I think a lot of folks are familiar with that Kaiser Permanente and CDC study from the late 90s with adverse childhood experiences like abuse and neglect. That may be what first comes to your mind, but there's been a more recent study from Philadelphia. You can look it up. It's called the Philadelphia ACEs Project. And they actually found that severe bullying acts just, has those same levels of consequences as those initial adverse childhood experiences from that CDC and Kaiser Permanente study. So I think, and really what we're trying to do here is just raise awareness and it's like remove the stigma from some of these topics. And we talk about, stigma a lot with the treatment and recovery and substance use disorder, and just trying to bring these resources and strategies to light so parents have, a good understanding and some resources.
Wow, that is amazing, Sarah. I love that you guys are putting a focus on the ACEs. They're so important. And you think about ACEs from, your upbringing with your children. I know a lot about them because there's 10 of them, and I had 8 and possibly 9. So I was pretty jacked up, okay? And I'm still on the potter's wheel and being changed all the time. But when you think about kids, now these devices are in their homes. So maybe they are not being abused by someone, but someone is, physically in the household, but someone is literally coming through their screen and tearing them down and making them feel worthless and so forth, or is sending, pictures is sexual abuse. And, there's just so much that comes to it. So I'm interested where the study will go about another 10, 15 years from now, because there's, it's hard to find really good, legit documentation on these things, because so many people are like, it's no big deal. It's just the way we do life now. But I think that we will probably see some long-term effects, and those will be elaborated on. So that's really awesome that you mentioned the ACEs. So for those of you that have not taken any training on that, you should. It's very eye-opening. Adverse childhood experiences are real. And when you know where someone's coming from, it makes it a whole lot easier to deal with them. And that is amazing, Garland, how your daughter recognized that and how you all coached her through the process of making the decision and so forth, because that's what we really need to do. No one, when, I don't know about y'all, but when I was growing up, it was like, no one gave me any skill sets, it was just like, I just beat them up, I mean, it's terrible. Why? Because I was hurting as a child. So that's very, very important. So awesome. Now, Candy, I've got something here in regards to the years that you worked in trafficking, and how often did you see it where it stemmed from being groomed online? Is that did you see that a lot, or is that more recent research that we're seeing?
That's more probably in the last 5 to 7 years. Like I said, as the internet has grown, social media has grown, more kids have access to cell phones because parents are afraid of their kids going to school without a device to get in touch with them. So they just have a lot more access. But I would say that that probably caused the biggest issue. And I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. I had just a little bit of a distraction. So please repeat the question one more time. I'm so sorry for that. I'm embarrassed.
If that is something more new or something that you've seen a lot of when you were out in the field, did you see a lot of victims that had been trafficked as a result of being lured in offline?
Okay. Right. They were, but in the same time, a lot of what we saw was familial trafficking. That was the predominant thing that we saw. And a lot of that, again, it went back to addiction. It went back to, just the economic crisis that people would be in. It just comes from all different walks of life. But I would say predominantly familial trafficking is what I saw.
Sarah, are you getting something on your end there?
One more time, Maggie. Sorry, I got a little bit of feedback there.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm trying to pull it down. I don't know how to do it. Okay, so do you have some more questions coming in on your end?
I've got just one more, and it's related to connection. A lot of times we say the opposite of addiction is connection. And how does social media play into that disconnect with the family? I think this actually is going back to something you said, Maggie, pulling kids away from the family unit and the time we're spending on social media. So I don't know who wants to comment on that one.
Tyler, you want to take that one?
I'm trying to understand the question. Can you repeat it? I apologize.
Does social media, I think the gist of it is, does social media make us, even though it's called social media, make us more disconnected? And is that related to addiction? What are the longer term possible ramifications of that?
Well, I think, the opposite of addiction is connection. We do know that. We've heard that time and time again from Dr. Stephen Lloyd. And I think that the fact of the matter is, anytime that we're not in the here and now, addicts in general have a hard time being in the moment. My head is always out here, so I always have to check my feet. And when I'm not checking my feet, that's when the anxiety hits. That's when I'm uncomfortable. That's when I'm grabbing for something to distract me. And like I said, it could be fantasy football. It could be social media, Facebook. And so there are times where I still, at almost 7 years sober, I have to sit down and say, I just need to be with my family. And so I absolutely think that. And that's why, when it comes to my daughters, that's going to be the premise of when we're at home. We're going to be together. The phones are going to be down. No video games till it's dark. And, she, like I said, she kind of dictated that because she showed in her behavior with how she treated her iPod and texting her friends. That was the outcome. So that was all I needed to realize that. And I think it made it more evident to me being a parent and seeing that and doing what I do now, that it all ties together. I think that if we can get out of that belief that that addiction is just this, and putting it in this box, and we can realize that there are multiple facets of addiction, and we can throw social media, Facebook, pornography, gluttony, workaholism. Workaholism is one that's overlooked. People work themselves into the ground, stress themselves out, and they die at an early age, but we don't talk about it. It destroys families. I mean, it leaves you distracted. So there's a lot of stuff that ties into it. And I think that if you can, and this is when I'm not a perfect parent. I'm learning as I go. I have a 3 and a 7-year-old daughter, and I'm just trying to prevent them from becoming and going through the things that I went through, because I know based off the work that I've done on myself, that there were things that I heard as a kid growing up. There were things that I did and indulged in at an early age that I believe wholeheartedly carried over into other behaviors. So if you can recognize it, and like Garland said, he hit it on the head. Being parenting's hard. I feel like half the time I'm just yelling at my kid or getting on to her. And sometimes I lay my head down and I'm just like, I cry. I'm like, I feel like I'm just mean. But the reality is, like, if we're not doing this stuff, it's not going to change anything. And I think that half the problem with parenting is sometimes you just get tired of doing that and you just give up and throw your hands up and you feed them an iPad. And that's not going to raise your kid, period.
Very well said, Tyler. Very well said. I've got a rule here where my youngest grandchild that here in Tennessee is 6. And when she comes and she wants pad time, she knows that before she can have any type of pad time, she got to read 2 books. And she's 6 years old, super smart. And she'll read those books and she'll read them out loud real quick. And then there's that reward of it. But, setting the boundaries, like you said, with your children is not easy. We don't want to be the bad guys, but listen, if we're the good guys all the time, we're not doing our job. And I hate to say it, but, social media or digital things, gamings, pads, all of this, you see it in the grocery store, they're in the cart, they've got the pad. You see it in the car, they got the pad, they're convenient babysitters. And we have to stop and think as a society where we're headed when they're constantly being inundated with images. And now we've got kids that can't focus. Focus is a real thing. Okay. I'm an ADHD adult. I proclaim healing over myself from that. But the reality is they didn't know what it was when I was a kid. And I have to work hard to stay focused. And this is something that splinters our attention. And so is anybody want to speak to that? Do you as an adult ever see it harder to focus because of the demands that you have? Most of us are professionals and we have social media accounts and we're trying to help people and so forth. Anybody want to speak to that, or am I all alone on that?
Well, I think all of us could speak to that, honestly. Maggie, I think it's something that's hard to admit, but it's true. We can all be distracted by social media, by just everything that we have going on in our day-to-day lives. It's hard to even know how to bring it all back in and just relax and just be you, because we do have so many demands coming at us, whether it be parenting or our jobs or, just what people are looking for on our social media accounts and things. So, I think that's very valid to say, and one thing that I personally would like to address to Garland, kudos to you for the way that you handled that with your daughter. And I think that's one of the most important things is not only just not allowing ourselves to be so distracted as a parent, but to bring it back in and create that environment for our kids to know that they can trust us to come to us, even with the hard things. And Tyler, like you were saying, it's hard being the bad guy all the time, and I feel like it a lot because I'm home with my kids every day. I homeschool my children. So I'm the bad guy all the time. Dad comes home from work and, he's not been here. And so they're like, Daddy, So it's hard. But if we can create that environment where our kids know that they can come to us and we're not going to judge them, that we're going to give them sound advice. And we have to be careful, like you said, Garland, you want to make that decision sometimes, like Maggie, you said, the mama bear comes out. You want to make that decision for your kids and you want to protect them, but in the same time, just allowing them to make those decisions for themselves and to be able to root them on and be a good cheerleader on the sidelines for them while they make those decisions. I think that when we do that, we also have created an environment for them to come to us when they don't know how to make a decision. They'll trust us because we showed them that we trusted them.
It's good. It's really good. And they need to know that we're in when it comes to social media, they all their friends are doing it. They want to be a part. They get a sense of self-worth. There was a scene, Tyler, you mentioned in and I'm trying to think if it was in the Childhood 2.0 documentary or if it was, I think it was in the Social Dilemma that was on Netflix, but it showed a young girl and she was a beautiful young girl and she had the phone up and she was doing this and she's changing all the filters and she's trying to find the right one and she finally finds it and then she posts it and then she waits for that affirmation. How many of y'all have seen Social Dilemma in the broadcast here? Have y'all seen it yet? Okay, Garland and Tyler seen it. It is, yeah. I screenshotted a couple of videos, or I videoed a couple spots and that was one of them that really got to me. And she posted it, and she started getting instant gratification. We have to delay gratification, we know, in order to be successful in so many things. But she started seeing all this, you're so pretty, you're liked, and all of this. And then all of a sudden, somebody put, you have big ears. And immediately, her countenance changed. And it's that emotional high to the emotional low of an 11-year-old girl in the mirror looking, and see, look, I got those ears, so I could talk about this. I related to the girl, but but I don't care what people think, and it's certainly not on social media. But it really, what they're doing is it's either a big high or a big low, and these are, they're developing brains. That's tough. And, I see grown women struggle with comparison, it's like, oh, I wish I looked like that, or I wish my husband did that, or all this and everything. And we have to be so careful. So I'm encouraging you all, watch these documentaries that we were talking about, gather your data, gather your research, create your family digital plan and implement it. Many of you are going to be purchasing items for your kids for Christmas. And I hope that you'll have a blessed Christmas, but games and phones and all of that. I seen a thing where this kid got a phone and we're seeing it's the iPhone 11 and he's saying, oh, it's porn, so, we've got to be sensitive to what we're giving them and what they can handle. And certainly, age appropriate, it's really hard anymore because it's blended together so much. So does anyone, Sarah, do you have any more questions on your end?
I don't see anything. I was just checking. I don't see any more questions. I did have one thought that I think we would be a little bit maybe remiss to not mention, that we're all a bit socially, maybe more than a bit socially isolated right now because of COVID-19.
Yes.
And so I'm just speculating, and all of this has really got me thinking about, are our kids even on social media more? Are we going to see just what does the next few years hold in terms of what we've been through through 2020 and what's continuing on through 2021? So not really a question. It just popped in my mind since it is, of course, an important topic and the topic of the day. All those really broad reaching, increase in mental health concerns related to the pandemic. So I just, again, if anybody wants to comment on that, but I just wanted to mention it.
There's definitely more of a presence online with students. I am finding because, most of the educators are asking, the parents aren't like right there while their kids trying to do their work. And there is a big concern when you look at it, because I'm right now, I'm doing digital with my granddaughter. So she's here a lot and I am peeking in there all the time, you know, and I'm like, what are you doing? Let me see the screen, you know? I mean, but because kids, because their attention span is so all over the place right now, they have that impulsivity of wanting to, do I have any messages? Can I do this? Messaging back and forth. And so I think that you're right. And I'm just kind of blabbering here, Sarah, but I think you're right. With COVID, our kids have been in a very challenging situation where their interaction socially has become screen time. So, Tyler, can you speak to, and I don't know if you know about this, I did have major concerns when this happened because of the isolation of people struggling with addiction. It is very important to be in community. Do you know how well the success of online NAAA, Al-Anon, Alateen, Celebrate Recovery, any of those programs have done? Have you heard just from the grapevine?
Hold on a minute. Hold on, baby. Hold on one second.
No problem.
Okay. All right.
Oh, look at this.
All right. Can y'all wave and then you gotta walk away? Take your sister. Take your sister. All right. I'm so sorry. All right. So, I mean, let's be honest. Trying to get somebody struggling to a meeting in itself is difficult. Getting them to log on, it's a lot of excuses. A lot of people that have been coming into treatment, that one of the main excuses is everything's online now. NAAA, it's not personal. I don't feel like I'm a part of it. So we obviously are seeing an increase in the suicide rate. We're seeing overdose rate increase and spike. I mean, obviously we're having flu, COVID, so the hospitals are being overloaded. I'm in and out of the hospitals almost every day. Honey, if I need to go. No, Charlotte, you're about to go in timeout. One. So, all right. Sorry, there's the parenting coming into play. I should have muted it. But it's just getting to the point where the hospitals are starting to turn people away. They're giving them medications for overdoses and sending them out. They're not even trying to place them now because they're so overloaded with everything else. So, and then what makes it increasingly harder on top of that is getting access to treatment. Grant beds aren't really there. People are trying to expand those grant beds, but everything else is private insurance or Medicaid. Medicaid's limited. So it's been really tough. And then we can't go do our job because we're not allowed in a lot of these places to advocate and say, hey, we have a treatment facility right up the road that can help you, or we can help you place people. So it's been hard. I mean, trying to do what I do, and I know and what y'all do too, you know, as soon as COVID hit, we were all in lockdown. So I think it's complicated, the whole situation. You know, I think really the best thing that we can do is just try to reach out, let people know that the meetings are there. There are some in-person meetings. You just got to find them. If it gets worse, I anticipate they'll probably go back to all online. But in our treatment facility, we're still taking people out, and they're still going to those in-person meetings because it just was too interpersonal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, when we're digital, it does take some things away. I kid around saying I was doing Zoom before it was fashionable because I meet with clients online all the time and have for a long period of time, but it is not good for every type of ministry that we offer. Coaching, it's great, but counseling, it's not. I literally don't allow marriage couples to be this close to the screen. Like if you all were clients, I would be like, okay, I need you to sit across the room and I need it way over here. You know, I need to see your body language. You know, I don't need to see her hitting him in the leg whenever you make a comment. So it is not conducive for everything that we do, but right now it's the next best thing we have. And so I'm grateful for the technologies, and there are those pros and cons that we looked at. So any final words from you, Garland, that you would like anyone to, you know, your thoughts over anything we talked about tonight, or as a parent, or any words of encouragement?
No, yeah, I guess I would say a couple things. One is that, Tyler, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
You really are doing a great job. The fact that you will not allow this meeting to intervene or interrupt you being a parent speaks volume. You're going to
Thank you, man. It means a lot.
Oh man,
Yes,
I'm
we
telling
do.
you, man, we got to encourage each other. This is a support group right here by
Thank you.
itself. Yeah, the one thing I would say is I think, as we're talking about social media and everything, and we're talking about COVID and how it's created this distance for us, I think every human being was created to be in communion with others. So with our kids, they are really longing to feel a part and to feel like they belong. And if they don't receive that at home, they're going to go somewhere else to look for it. And because social media is so accessible, is that if I don't even find it in my home, I can find it in my hands. I mean, it's right here in the palm of my hand. I can connect with someone in China, in Africa, in Asia, and they are welcoming me to come in. Even those who are predators that Miss Carter talked about, is that those groomers, those people that are on social media, they're waiting for them to come, to open up their iPhones, to get onto their tablets, to do those things. So I would say to every parent is that it's hard work. Let's don't make any doubts about that. It's going to be hard, but be encouraged if you are intentional and you are being purposeful in your parenting, and to always affirm them, not just saying that they're cute, that they're pretty, they're smart, but affirm them in the relationship that you have with them, that there is safety, there is security, they do belong. So as you do have to make those hard decisions and give some toughness, make some tough decisions, it balances itself out, because they know that you're doing it from a place of love and they already feel belonged. So when you do have to make the tough choices, it's a little easier to digest when you have to do that. So that would be my encouragement, is that we're all going to miss it. We're going to make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to miss it. But at the end of the day, if we can create an environment that makes them feel like they belong, and we can affirm that relationship even when they miss it, and even when we miss it, you're going to be just fine. You're going to be fine as parents, and you're going to prevent them from coming to see me. And that's what I want to do the most, is prevent that from happening. And if we can do that, man, we'll have a better place, a better environment for our children to learn, and we can create a wonderful place for our children to grow, and have a better community that affects our state and affects our nation, hopefully impacts the world.
So good, Garland. Such great advice, and I absolutely love that. And we thank you for all you do at the detention center. I've seen you in action there, and you are the right guy for the right job. I can promise you that. So, it's all about prevention, and that is so good, and proactive parent instead of reactive parenting. So, Candy, any final words from you tonight, dear?
Well, and just to piggyback on what Garland just said, I mean, he said it very well. I think, Maggie, just like you said a timer, when you're on social media, you set that timer. I think that as parents, if we've got to stop trying to fit our family, our children into our time versus the social media and other things into our family time. We just can't get those two mixed up. And, another thing that thank you, Garland. Another thing that I really encourage big time, dads. Oh my goodness. I mean, mamas are really important, but dads, the place that you hold in your child's life is really much, much higher than you can even imagine. And I think, it's a huge role to fulfill, but you have the ability to really shape a child in a way much different than the mama can. Daddies, you need to tell your daughters how beautiful they are. Daddies need to really esteem them, because if you don't, there's going to be a guy out there that will. And not only that, not necessarily being too strict, but being firm with your children, because they need to understand that role of parent versus child. And a lot of times it takes the dad to initiate that, because moms, even though they're with us a lot of times, and they have a tendency to tune us out, where dad can have that voice that's meaningful to them, and they need that. And I think that's what's happened so much in the family unit is just the lack of that. These kids need it. I needed it. It was so good, to have that that male voice, that male influence that is safe. That's so important. And, there's not a whole lot more I can say behind what you already said, Garland. I mean, it's so true. I mean, we've got to plug in and we've got to be active. Sit down and play a game with your kids. Read a book with them. Do whatever you can to engage and keep them and let them know what their place in the family is.
So good. Thank you so much. Tyler, closing statements from you, and maybe a word of encouragement for those who are struggling. If they watch this presentation, they're going, oh my gosh, my kid is addicted to digital, or I am addicted to digital. Any encouraging words and closing comments for you?
Yeah, I mean, I work with parents, and this is what's crazy to me is I'm still learning, right? And I'm coaching parents that have teenagers on how to set boundaries. And I'm still trying to figure out how to do it on my own kids, but that's another story for another day. But I think that the biggest thing I can say is this, like, with those parents dealing with that, they just try to be their friends. They're like, I'm afraid to kick them out of the house. If I kick them out of the house, what if they wind up dead? Well, would you rather come home and your kids overdosed on your couch because you didn't set a firm boundary with them? Because that's the next option with what they're doing. So, kids are fallible. Kids, they're born into sin. They don't understand right and wrong. They learn by testing boundaries. Charlotte's mom passed away from addiction at an early age, and she had to understand what death was very early. So I had to make a decision. Do I bring her to the funeral at 3, or do I not take her and then chance that and I'm thinking forward, like, because I could see her resenting me one day because I never took her. So I went against my parents' judgment, and took her. And now she can say that she was there. But the point that I want to get to is I'm just trying to make the next right decision for her, and to get her to talk about her feelings and talk about what happened. Why did she do that? Like, why did daddy use drugs? Like, what was it? And if I bring it back to a feeling and I explain to her, it's because I didn't talk about my feelings. It's because I always thought that what people that bullied me said, and I just internalized it. When mom and dad asked me if I was okay, I just said yes and went to my room and played video games. That was the problem. My parents were going through a divorce. They did the best they could in that moment, but they were so busy trying to climb out of bankruptcy that they didn't, I don't know how they could have had the time. Single mom, single dad, trying to get out of debt. And they, looking back, I used to blame them for a lot of the stuff that happened, and then I realized it's because it was my inability to take responsibility for my actions. So, we do little things like star charts now, with allowance, where she has to clean her room. You have to make these decisions because this is your responsibility now, because I'm not just going to buy you toys anymore. You're going to earn them. And I feel like that's things that I was never instilled, because my parents wanted to give me everything they never had, because they came from nothing, so to speak. And so, just doing things different. And for the parents that are like, well, I've already messed my kid. How many times I've said I've already messed him up? She's 7 now. I heard in psychology, it's like 5 to 7. You got this window not to destroy your kid's moral structure. Well, the reality is you got time. You just have those tough conversations with them. Take the time to do it. Take the stuff away. You hold the power, whether you know it or not your 12-year-old. They're not bigger than you. Don't forget how strong you actually are, and that you're wearing the pants and you fund everything they got. So use that as leverage to get them to sit down and be in the moment, and to understand that, like, family is what's most important. And I'm going to keep practicing that, because there are days that I get distracted. Well, that's all I got, really. I think that if you can just remember the core essence of family and just try to make them gain those things in responsibility and make them earn it, that's what's important. And that's what I didn't get in that moment.
Wow. I can hear all the parents out there saying, amen, brother. So good. Sarah, any final words, comments from you?
Well, we had one additional question come across on Facebook, so I just wanted to take a moment, and it was a really good point. And direct everybody, when you have a moment, to a survey that was done of students in Tennessee from, it was age 8th graders, 10th graders, and 12th graders. It's called the Tennessee Together Student Survey, and it's on the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services website. And I think that the request of that we just point out in the Facebook post is just how early kids are facing some of these issues. And you can see this data in this survey with 13.5 years being the average age of beginning to abuse prescription drugs, and alcohol abuse beginning at 13.7 years. And so for me, it just really kind of closes the circle on why we're doing this, that these are real issues for our kids. That we've got to keep our kids safe. They're our most important asset in this country. And so the more we can do to support parents and prevent these, kids from developing these challenges and problems, then it's just going to make us our whole population better.
And Sarah, I want to thank you and the Prevention Coalition for Success for allowing me to facilitate this meeting tonight. Garland, Tyler, Candy, I mean, I love you all outside here, but I'm so encouraged by the things that you said, and my kids are grown, but I am a Juvenile, and it takes a village. And for those of you watching this and you have questions and you're like, oh, I didn't get my questions answered, you can still put them in the chat stream. I will follow up with those as well, and we will also put some resources out there. If you have any questions or concerns, please let us know. And if it's something that's very private, you can private message me if you're like, I don't want to put that out there where God and everybody can see it. Now, if you send it to me in a private message, God will still see it, but I will see it without the eyes of the World Wide Web. So thank you so much, everybody. We'll go ahead and log off. Thank you, viewers, for logging on. And please do this out to your friends, family, coworkers, because everybody's got a child, and we're in this together, and we do better together. Thank you.